Go, 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 go.
Change the focus.
Okay,
A lot of times.
it's, okay, go ahead and go. We are going to go ahead and get started with our work session. Everybody ready for that? Let's start with an agenda review. I had, well, no, let's start with the first one. Who's going to talk about the district update? It's the first item on the agenda. We've talked about it several times.
Right, this will be the meeting where council votes, either yea or nay.
And then after that, it's enacted? Is that, or is there a waiting time? No, okay.
Right, but of course, it doesn't have any impact until the next election, or qualifying, I guess I should say. But so that's when it really will have an impact.
As soon as it's passed or approved, then I send it to Fulton County, and then they update the voter registration list, that sort of thing. So
I mean, your new
something-
district
yes,
is the district,
Yes.
but we all think about the whole city all the time anyway, so it doesn't really matter that much. All right. Next one is the MOU with the art co-op for the studio space, and I assume Robbie or Rick? Rick or Robbie? Robbie.
I can talk about it, I reviewed it, it's much like the Brickworks MOU.
Worked with our attorney, Rick Lindsay, on the issue for the art room, so we've got all the, we got all the insurance documents in the MOU worked out. We basically modeled it after Brickworks, so it's the same basically arrangement that we have with them, and same insurance policies that are in place, and it's a type of year renewal, so every year it automatically renew unless one or the other decides not to do so.
And the main goal there is, again, we've got a nonprofit doing good things for the community in space owned by the city, and we just want to make sure that everything is documented in a way so that everybody's clear what the responsibilities are and requirements, right? No big deal. Anybody have any questions about that?
No, I did see one thing, and maybe I just didn't see it. It talks about Chat Hills, they agree, or the co-op agrees to make space available in the area designated as flex space in Exhibit A, but I didn't see flex space in Exhibit A.
The whole thing is flex space.
Oh, the whole thing is flex space.
But it should say Exhibit A, maybe write the word flex space so we know that.
Okay. I thought there was a space within the space. That's what I was looking for. I was like,
And
where
then
is-
Robbie, there was some discussion about them drafting a policy for using, that's separate than the MOU, right?
It is,
Okay.
yeah, for their policy, because it's technically their operation.
Their space, okay.
Good.
Okay,
right.
thanks.
Next up, we had the commission assignments. I had originally been intending just to re-recommend the same slate. And then I realized that the email that I had sent out asking everybody to confirm that they were going to stay on was still in my outbox. So it didn't go out until a little later than I thought. I've been talking to the Historic Commission today. They're talking about making some changes. So I'm going to withdraw that one. We'll talk about that one next month. Parks Commission, everybody reconfirmed, and that one we'll go ahead and do. The Planning Commission, we have a member rolling off, and so we'll talk about that too, if you have recommendations for that. It may be that the Historic Commission just does some reconfiguring. We're working through that. We will need another person for the Planning Commission, so I'm going to pull that for next month. And that is it for the regular meeting agenda. We're going to all talk very slowly so that we don't have too short of a meeting. I'm kidding. And then on to our discussion items. There's been this ongoing conversation. We've had a couple of members of the community here several times now because of issues that they've had with shooting close to their home for extended periods that is bothering them. And because the conversation has come up several times, we've had actually a bunch of other people reach out too with similar issues. Balancing that against the fact that, you know, part of the theory from the very beginning was that we were reserving enough rural space in our community that you'd be able to keep rural pursuits like hunting and all that available. But balancing that against the fact too that, you know, shooting off 1,000 rounds 50 feet from your neighbor's house doesn't have anything to do with hunting. So it's this conversation that we wanted to have, and we have a draft of a possible ordinance that would reflect that, but it's something to talk about.
Yeah, Mayor, I just want to weigh in on that, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
please.
Yeah, absolutely. You knew I would.
I want everybody to.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say that, you know, approaching this type of issue, it would be, I just want to stress that we don't need to make any quick decisions on it. I'm sure the dialogue and the conversation will be quite lengthy and considering the entire weight of the community on this. And I do sympathize with the people that are there. Every person that sat there and was having problems with that. I know every individual. I grew up with most of them, and they're well-respected people in this community. So I do weigh in on their input. But if we're not careful, as to put it in the words of a citizen that I just spoke to, we need to be careful about it. And I'm sure we won't knee-jerk reactions on stuff like this, and that's all I want to say.
It's an interesting problem, right? I also, recognize, well, I'll wait. Anybody else have other thoughts on this? Because I know people have heard from citizens too, I would assume. Ruby?
Well, the thing is that I was just sharing with someone, I do hear the shooting. I mean, if you're gonna shoot, it's okay, but if you're just gonna pow, 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 that doesn't make any sense. A lot of time I know when Miss Gloria and I'm here, I'm usually upstairs on the front part of my house, but when I am on the back part, I did hear it, so. And it's annoying.
Camille?
Yeah, so I've heard as well from a few folks, like there's a, and to Troy's point, this isn't about the people. This is maybe their hobby, that they shoot AR-15. That's fine. That's a hobby. I just find that it's the repetitive, constant noise and that can go on for hours or even all day long, depending, which is a quality of life issue for the people around them, especially when you're maybe even on just an acre. It depends on what that looks like, even 5 acres. So when I was looking at this, it's looking like we have some distance. We're looking like 200 yards, maybe size of acreage. I mean, I like the fact that we're talking about this because I know it's not just one house. There's another house on Hamilton Road. There's one that's in Coweta County near Serenby that always has done it, but that's Coweta County. But it is happening in more than just 2 or 3 locations.
But I mean, if you go out and you look at where they're doing it at, and they have a proper berm, and they're shooting in a proper manner, and I know there's a lot of leeway on all of this. I'm not trying to, stand up in dissonance on all of it, because we do need to consider this in a long conversation. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I'd say too, the idea, it doesn't strike me as the kind of thing where, the Second Amendment is a thing, and the idea of permitting or whatever, us adding a layer of that does not make sense to me. There are 3 issues in my mind. One is safety, right? I've heard from people who've had animals killed on their property. I've heard from people that have found bullets on their porch, things like that. I mean, that's people not shooting safely, and that's an issue. That's a big issue. Then there's the kind of just the level of noise going on for so long close to someone's house. That's another issue, just the nuisance value of that. And then there is, again, the legitimate need to, if you've got a gun, to practice every now and then, and if you're doing it safely, and if you're hunting or whatever, and finding a way to balance those. I agree, there's no rush for me either to resolve this, but it is something. I've heard from more people complaining about the nuisance by far, and it's mainly about noise, just, it's happening next to my house, except for a couple of people that have found things on their porch or whatever, and there it is a real safety issue for them.
So Tom, I wonder, as we're thinking about this, and I agree, Roy, it's a tough thing to kind of try to balance. So I live about a mile from Foxhall Resort where they skeet shoot. And I'm just used to it, but it's not like rapid. And then I know it's a mile away, so I'm not in any danger, a stray bullets, that kind of thing. But a couple of residents who have complained did share audio and a video of, what they're talking about. And oh my gosh, I understand when people say, I just can't live here if this kind of thing continues, and that's a shame. But looking at those three concerns, and then trying to balance, how do we not impinge on people's rights with the firearms? I wonder if there's any way, and Troy, Richie, that hunt, is there any way to kind of separate the issue? So there's people that hunt, and I don't think that's the problem. They're not, firing 100 rounds in an hour if you're hunting, unless you're a bad shot. Some way to separate that with, what would you call it, leisure shooting, target practice, that kind of thing. And in the target practice part, would there be a way to designate hours? I mean, so it's not like, I don't know. I don't know. What would you think,
Yeah,
Troy?
I don't know, Lori. I mean, that is a complicated issue, and I agree with you. There needs to be a balance. I mean, if I'm living, 75 feet or 150 feet or something from somebody, and they're just pow, 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 pow all the time, I mean, I get it. Used to living out here, we resolve those issues between neighbors. But I'm learning, rather quickly that people don't do that anymore. They don't resolve issues between neighbors.
I think actually a lot of them probably do, right? It's just you
Yeah.
have these 3 or 4 folks who just refuse to be
Right. Well,
considerate,
that's a good take, Mayor. I actually I'd rather acquiesce to that view than even what I just stated,
And this is about people that just won't be considerate. That's,
Right,
and
right.
you don't want to change some grand rule that
Right.
punishes people who are considerate
Right.
because of the few that aren't, but you have to address the,
You do.
So is there anything we could consider with the noise ordinance where it's just a period of time, like over 3 hours, the continual thing? So right now it's based on decibels. So the pitch or the volume of the firing is not gonna meet that threshold. I don't know if there's a way of adding, for example, I think we have something with our noise ordinance about operating lawnmowers, that kind of thing, saws before 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. My husband's aware of that. So Sunday morning, he doesn't get to cut the grass, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, as we're just throwing out ideas to consider if that might be a thing. So not that we would do a blanket ordinance, but if you're going to try to address the 3 or 4 people that are causing the problems, you need something other than a knock on the door to say, please don't. You need a kind of thing, well, you're over the threshold or something like that. I don't know.
I don't know. Well, there's also this component of distance, because if you're on an acre
Yeah.
and you're next door to an acre, and that is so loud it shakes your
It's
house.
loud.
There are 3 hours of that, I'm gone. I'm just saying, I mean, that's, the noise isn't gonna help. There's gonna have to be, to me, some kind of distance consideration,
again, Troy, I'm
potentially.
particularly interested in your opinion. If Richie were here, I'd be asking him too, like,
Sure.
He's getting on Zoom, sir.
it's that kind of question. And I mean, we talked about this a lot 16, 17, 18 years ago when we were first talking about
Sure.
this, we're going to compress development, we're going to save a lot of open space.
Right.
And one of the places that we always kind of picked on was Milton, where you'd have people move in next to a farm, next to horses or
Right.
cows or whatever, and then start complaining about the smell of the animals and want to close the farm down. Like, we were
Wow.
never going to do that here, right? And this feels to me a little like that.
Well, I think that's exactly what it is.
But again, if you're on an acre lot next to another acre lot, you shouldn't have the expectation that you're dealing with that issue, right? And I don't know.
But Tom, also, things have changed. You see gunshots on the news every day, every hour, somebody getting shot. So it's not about, you might not live close enough to hear it, because you got several acres, but we do hear it.
And people do walk in the woods and walk on our gravel roads and ride bikes on the gravel roads. And I'm not sure that everyone's as good a shot as you and Richie are. I know I always wear orange when I'm out hiking or riding my bike kind of thing, but.
Yeah, I think my my input on this discussion is just right back to what I said in the inception, is let's not make this a quick decision. Let's talk this thing through thoroughly,
And
you know.
what we need to do though is, have some straw men to talk about, right? Like,
Hey, Tom.
Sir? Hey, Richie.
How are you guys? Can I say something real quick?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Yeah, did Robbie tell you what him and I discussed when it came to this subject matter?
I haven't heard that, no.
Okay, what I suggested, because, I realize what everybody's saying, it is a nuisance or whatever, but maybe we should think along the lines of, if somebody say they have a minimum of, say, 4 acres or 5 acres, and maybe we have either Greg or somebody from Public Works, if people are shooting guns, maybe go look at their property and see if it is in a safe setting to be firing them. As far as the noise goes, I mean, guns make noise. I'm more concerned about the stray bullet. But and at that case, whether we give them a permit or a safety check and say, listen, these guys, because of the elevation in their yard, or maybe they have a mound back there, or their targets are properly insulated behind them or something. That way we have peace of mind to say that, it's okay for these people to be shooting here. And I understand too that maybe I'm not real big on ordinances when it comes to guns. I'm sure that doesn't surprise anybody. But I mean, the shooting at night is completely unnecessary. But I think if we do a safety check on people's property and where they're shooting, if it is safe, you never know. A lot of these guys, they brought in a couple of dump trucks full of dirt and the bullet's never going anywhere. It's just a hobby. But just kind of maybe that's a starting point. I don't know, but I think from the safety standpoint, if either the yard checks out or not, and we can have a master list, and maybe at City Hall, and if somebody calls and says this guy's shooting, he's not on there. I get that, but I mean, I don't
Richie,
know,
do you think-
1 or 2 acres,
Richie, in the same way that we limit the time that construction can happen, right? Because again, if you're having breakfast on Sunday morning or Saturday morning, or if you're having supper and it's getting dark, you don't want construction happening right next to you. Do you think some sort of time limits like that would make sense as well?
Yeah, I think, sun up, during the hunting season, as soon as the sun rises, people are going to be shooting, but for recreational shooting, which is what this sounds like.
Right.
Oh yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, people should, at least have, be able to sleep till 9 o'clock, especially on a Saturday if they've been working all week. But I don't, I think the gun laws are just that, the gun laws. But also I think that from a government body or from a city body, we need to make sure that these people, whichever direction they're shooting in, we need to know what they're shooting at and make sure that those bullets aren't just, like Ruby said, freely flying through the woods. And if you don't have that kind of setup, then maybe an ordinance is defined as what you need to have on your property to participate in recreational shooting. And once that's pre-approved by the city, then you can get a permit to shoot. Doesn't cost anything. It just means that, if somebody calls and says, hey, Mr. Bettis is firing, well, you know what, we've been out there and his setup is safe, and something comes through your yard, let us know, but it's legal to shoot guns,
So I think we know of at least 3 places. 2 of them are in Chad Hills, 1 in Coweta. Is that something we could do, an officer-friendly check, and get that information Richie's talking about as a starting point? It's like we're saying, we probably don't need to do a blanket thing for a few instances. Let's try to resolve a few instances first. And then also maybe reach out to Coweta, and because apparently that's a repeat offender down there. Where's that on?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, if we're gonna have a rule, we're gonna have a rule, right?
Okay.
And the rule will apply to everybody so that everybody knows what the expectations are. Rick, I had a question for you, right? I mean, there are obviously Second Amendment issues around any controlled guns. I don't like the idea of blanket restrictions. I like the idea of making people be polite, and that's hard to do legally, right? So what do you think about, as you're listening to this, the idea of having something where there was some sort of review of where people are shooting recreationally, like Richie suggested, and then maybe some sort of time parameters in which that can happen?
I think reasonable regulations, such as either distance or what Richie was talking about, maybe certain safety.
Backstops or whatever.
Or, side berms or whatever, so the stray bullets can't get over to your neighbor's yard, whatever. And then hours, again, I think it'd be easier to say, look, if you're doing target practice, and if you were gonna say recreational, you gotta define what
Right.
it is, so that doesn't include hunting.
Right,
But maybe it's between the hours of 9 a.m. to an hour before dark or whatever. But what I would ask is that you guys have some conversation with your constituents and get some ideas, then give them to me, and I'll be happy to put together a draft of an ordinance. I'm not even call it a model. Just say, look,
Right.
here's something that I put together based on what you guys gave to me that I think would comply with the restrictions and requirements of the Second Amendment, and then you go from there.
This is coming from a lot of citizen input. This subject is kind of hot for the last couple of months. Because again, a couple of neighbors that aren't being considerate, right? And so the idea of putting something together that we can then take out and say, what do you think about this to folks would be.
Must have a
very
draft
useful.
first and then.
I think we're at the point where we could take a draft.
Yeah.
Okay, Robbie, will you send me some suggestions about what is safety? Because I don't shoot, so I would say put some mattresses back. I know that won't work.
No, right.
And then maybe just to have that definition, and we're talking about recreational shooting, not hunting, to separate the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think we need to be careful. We've got a lot of influx of people that have not been around this type of culture. And to them, a gun is, just the sound of a gun is anathema to them. So we've got to take that into consideration too.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And there are people, I was gonna say, and there are people that have lived, like I lived in the country and dealt with it forever, and I
Sure.
still hate it. I wouldn't want to live right by it, going off every day.
Sure.
It would really impact my quality of life, along with consistent dog barking all day, night long, all day long. That would bug me, and I've heard from some constituents about that. It can be a lot. And then amplified sound all day long. People with a really, all of these things can really, those are just considerations when you have a neighbor.
Sure.
Good.
No.
All right. So, sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add on to what Troy said there. I do think we need to be aware of a lot of the new people moving into the area. I've actually had to speak with a couple of them who've actually brought that subject matter to me. And they were individuals that moved here from out west. And I had to remind them that, you moved in the country, people hunt. You're going to hear a gunshot. But I don't know where the law falls on or how we find somebody who's just being like Camille said, just a rude neighbor. I think that's the route that we need to go down because, across the river from me, it's nothing to hear those guys run through 1,000, 2,000 rounds of ammunition in a 2-hour period. And they're using, it sounds like 50 calibers over there. But you're going to get that where we're at. But, when these houses are, so close together or whatever, even if they've got an acre, if they have a safe shooting lane, I just think the hours and the fine should be, ridiculous. If you're shooting past dark, I think that fine needs to make sure you don't shoot past dark again or be a rude neighbor. And I don't know how you really monitor that other than, somebody calling up complaining, but you know what they're going to do. The police can't go there with their sirens on full blast. They're just going to quit shooting. I don't know if we just have to catch them in the act or what.
It's absolutely not, Richie. I think you and I have talked about this before. The people that are actual hunters are not the same people that are doing that. It's not. Hunters don't.
No, they're not. But I just think, like you said, that we need to really, that is a way of life out here, hunting and things like that. But how we deal with the obnoxious guys, totally different. Cool.
All right, so I think we've got a starting point, and you can. Thanks, everybody. Next one up was the priority spreadsheet for the portion of the hotel motel tax that is at council's discretion. And there's been some conversation about what some of those items might look like.
Good evening, Lincoln Council again. I know this is mostly council discussion, but Daryl and I put together a spreadsheet and also working with Diana Wilson and the Parks Commission too, because you see a lot of this touches the parks. So they're already familiar with a lot of these items on the agenda anyway. But, you know, we can fund them with hotel motel funds if it relates to tourism. So if you want to go down the list or something, we can go through and touch on each of these, of course. I made some notes at the bottom that may have some questions from the mayor and council as far as direction you want us to go. Some of them are clean cut. Like lighting in the back, that's happening now. We're getting lights from Graysville Power. You know, the ranger station, it exists now. Now it's not open for business yet, but it's in the process of being open for business.
So Robbie, when you say it's happening now, is that these funds have already been allocated for it, that the work is in progress? What does that mean?
Well, I mean, like for the lights, I mean, Greystone Power is a great partner, as you know. So really the cost of the poles are like $225 or something.
That's just coming out of general funds.
And that's just, yeah, and the lighting, we have to pay general fund, and that's not much, it's nominal fee. So in the back, we're gonna have lights, that's gonna be up soon.
So that's number 2 on the list?
Yeah, that's number 2, like electric outlets, number 1, and that's in conjunction with the power, because we want to get them to run the proper power conduit so we can do it. And Daryl even had a great idea as far as running it down toward the pavilion over here. I say pavilion, or I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, we need
And
it
then,
over there.
and run an outlet there, so we can have outlets there for like when we have cooking or something there. I brought up, hey, let's throw some those cafe lights. I love those, you know, and put those there because those look good lit up underneath there for events and such like that. And employee picnics with Coronas and such. That'd be great.
So I know what we talked about also in the town green is having it where we would set the stage, so the musicians have a place to plug in?
Yeah, well, that's already there in the back. We have outlets for the stage.
You
That's
have
taken care of. That's by Public Works.
Okay.
And Robbie, I did
Yes,
ask
ma'am.
Dara about community brickwork in that area, that's stage back there. I mean, the back out, will there be some outlets there?
Yes, we can run outlets anywhere. Once we get them back here, once we get Georgia Power, we can run the cable or conduit, then we can just continue on with those outlets.
Yeah.
And have access. We're gonna need it for the tree lighting event.
Right.
And one of the lights we're talking about is putting in the back corner, but they're gonna be 2 lights on 1 pole. So it's shining toward our berm for shooting guns and such. And then, of course, back toward the tree for tree lighting. So it's gonna be lit up back there.
What about the walkway from community brickwork? Will there be any lights going down through there?
The light's gonna shine from the corner that direction. And as the mayor talked about, we're gonna make sure with Georgia Power, they've got these special lights that shine downward.
I was
So
gonna
we
ask
don't
that.
cast lights.
You know,
too
so
far.
while you're asking them about that, could they, oh, never mind. Sorry.
We can ask them anything.
Well, they need to fix some of the lights they've got on the road that people have just, say, hey, I want a street light there. And they're shine, the one I'm talking about on Cedar Grove Road that blinds you in the morning when you,
Right.
'cause it's,
And one thing, not to put the police, they're in the room right now, and they carry pepper spray and stuff. But from a police standpoint, what we did in other cities is the police officers, if they see a light, because they're patrolling at night, and they happen to see a light that's not working or it's out, those poles are marked. We get it, like, this is A14, located at the corner of Cocker Mill and Rivertown or something like that. Let us know, we'll let Greystone Power know, because we don't know if the lights aren't working during the day.
So the hooded light thing
yeah.
is something that we've talked to them about many times over the course of the years, and they haven't wanted to do it because they didn't want to sign themselves up for doing them all like that here. We're trying to backdoor that here by getting a couple here that are like that, proving to them that they can do it and it's not that big a deal, and then going forward, we know
So will the hooded lights be here at City Hall then?
that's what we're.
That's our ask for
Okay.
them.
That's our ask.
So then is number 1 and 2 a yes and a go on this list?
As far as I'm concerned, they're a go. They're in progress.
Robbie, will we have a way to turn them off
No.
in case we're out in the back and want ambient lighting and have a movie or something? No, there's no way to kill it. Can they set it up like that so we can?
Timer or?
They're on photo cells, so they're basically charged during the day and they come on at night. I mean, that's the way Greystone Power does it now.
Yeah,
mean,
I know.
can check.
I just
mean,
wonder if,
I'm not the expert.
I mean, it's physically possible for sure.
Right,
because we may have events where we don't need it for
We don't
looking like,
want it.
right.
what's that?
Where you don't want it.
Yeah, it's sort of the bright out event. Just
Yeah.
come to the bright out event.
If you go with
Okay.
utilities, you're not gonna be able to turn them off, no.
Well, no, because when we, lived in East Point, across the street from a tennis court, they were on timers and then.
Well,
there
their
was a little
program is
different.
they're giving you a discounted light so that you use the electricity, right? And so
Right.
that's just their program.
Yeah, you're talking about like being able to turn off street lights, you're not.
It may be something though that the city can ask and get
Right.
in our
There's nothing we
backyard.
can't ask. I mean, I don't know all the things that they can do, but I mean, yeah, why?
And like, it wouldn't happen all the time. I'm just thinking on occasion, we may want to have a,
Our contact there, we were talking about this today, our contact there is about to retire. And so our thought process is,
Hey,
you
I
know,
mean, you might could set it up like a tennis court.
get them to
or
commit to some
something
stuff
like that. You
when you
might.
can't get fired anymore.
yeah, they're very helpful. I mean, as you know, they're great community partners.
I've been working on that. We're working on all that.
Okay. So you heard all the things people are asking for. Let's see if we can get all that done.
Have y'all got input from, Mr. Greg about any of the lights? I'm just kidding.
Who's that? Oh, Greg?
All right, so parking.
Parking.
One piece of this is the fixing the parking lot that looks so bad. That I think, Daryl has been making sure that everybody recognizes we spend all of our paving money out where citizens benefit from it, not on ourselves. But I also understand the, desire that folks have to make City Hall look good. So that's one piece of this. The other piece of this is expanding or paving the back lot.
No,
I'm looking at what's written down here. I just want to understand what it was that was the
That's
ask.
why some of these I didn't have an answer for, I can get prices on, but.
Okay.
Okay, what's the will of the council and the community? I mean, we're fans of pervious service, not impervious.
For
service.
sure.
So Daryl, is it very expensive to keep the back of City Hall covered in gravel? Because it looks really good. My thought is just leave it alone.
You don't have drainage issues then either because it soaks in.
When we redid, y'all remember a couple of years ago, we put the fence, we redid that, rebuilt the back parking lot, we built it forever, the runoff.
I want to make sure because the things on this list came from a lot of different directions and I'm not sure who asked for what and what they were thinking exactly. So I just wanted to be sure what,
What do you
The
mean?
front parking lot, yes.
the front parking.
Yes.
In front of
Okay.
City Hall?
the back is fine with
Right.
gravel.
Side access that.
Yeah,
we used to go
cleaning up all the potholes. Yeah. Okay.
We might be able to, and we got an engineer in the room, we're gonna talk about T-Splosh later, we might be able to roll that into that. That'd probably be the best way to do it.
Sure,
It's
we're already
already
mobilizing out here, yeah. The portable stage, I assume we're talking about something like the one that we've borrowed before, right? Is that,
There's different schools of thought on that. When I say portable, it could be something that, you store, you put together, and it comes in multiple pieces with a canopy and stuff on top for weather or just sun and that kind of stuff, and their own bands know about that. There's a cost to that, both from, manpower, personnel, putting it together, storage, also a cost of purchasing. Or you can use a portable stage, like we use from the county. And the county's been, if you give them enough notice, they've been I said the county, City of South Fulton, sorry.
Right.
City of South Fulton been very, very accommodating for us if you give them enough notice. And I've heard through a third party that they're purchasing a couple more.
right?
And that means they might have more availability
Right.
to be more, hey, we got 2 new ones, our old one's available. Hey, we'll take the old one and it's free. That's what I love.
My thought on that is when we borrowed the one from the county for the 10-year anniversary, it was kind of large, too large for our needs, right? I like the idea of just having something you can wheel out there and not have to put together, just kind of open up the front door and the roof comes out.
Didn't Dave McMurrin make one for us once? Didn't we have on a flatbed trailer?
Yeah, that was like early
I remember
days.
we had an event with, right? You remember that, right? But that seems more like the scale.
Initially, in the back here, when we started that, we were using just a raised platform that was sort of 4x8
Yeah.
size, it's very small.
I know there's a benefit that one of the benefits of the Fulton County ones that City of South Fulton has now is that they're covered, right? So that if it rains or whatever, it's not getting wet. But, I have turned off my phone
So we don't know.
just just
You're good.
in case, I mean, it may be, I shouldn't be doing that, but
Is it Troy?
Maybe if we could get everybody to have a phone, put it on airplane mode, that might help.
That's what we were told by our professional AV
Even if it's
engineers, that
under the
airplane
table?
mode sometimes,
I'm not,
but anyway. But
All
the
right.
stage standpoint, you know, we're at the will of the council. I mean, we can do some more research on purchasing one of those. But, you know, going back to the beginning, this is more of it's a priority list. And it's almost like, okay, hey, let's do 1 through 5 this year. And not in that order, but let's do these 5 this year, these 5 next year, whatever you guys do. This is more of what do you want us to focus on?
I'm on airplane. Is it right?
poltergeist, it's totally
I got a
wrong.
new mic. I got a new mic.
Oh, man.
It's Richie. That's who it is.
I assure you, it's not me.
Sorry about your eardrums there, guys.
That's
All right.
okay.
Suddenly it sounds better.
But, you know, I know you guys, I mean, I like to go for the range, but there's also some bigger fruit that we can go after too.
I think we just keep it on the list, and if it becomes a problem where we can't get the stage we're needing when we're having events, then we reconsider.
Could we work through the list and see if there's a priority first and then maybe come back to this?
Yes.
We're gonna get them back out here. I'm gonna whack them over the head with my microphone.
So does that bring us down to number 6?
Number 6, Cochrane Mill Park parking. Yeah, I mean, here we're talking about the parking that we're adding around the tower, right?
No.
I'm on airplane mode.
I'm on airplane mode.
It's gotta be coming off soon. Hey, Richie, can you mute for a second?
Sure.
Yeah, is that possible? Yeah.
Wait, it stopped. Maybe it was,
No.
No, it didn't.
Well, last time we didn't have sound. Now we have sound. It's just not.
this was not the parking lot that's already there
No, I believe from what we understand is the parking lot across the street.
across the street.
Oh, right, right.
So we've talked about several times, actually making a visitor center across the street where the bridge is, the pedestrian bridge, and a parking lot there, and then an ADA trail. The whole thought being, people who come to the park who are recreational hikers, where they start now, they pull in the parking lot, they use the restroom, and they go hiking, and then they get lost because they're on the wrong side of the park for someone that is not familiar with the park. If we made the other side of the park the sort of go-to place, we'd probably reduce the number of people who got lost. So I don't know what that would look like. We did a couple of sketches and plans over the years where we thought that there was enough room for that. I don't know if any of those still exist or where $80,000 came from. Maybe Daryl's got an idea.
We got a better idea from a grading in gravel standpoint from the cell tower. So that size lot, we can tell you what it costs from grading and gravel and build out and that kind of stuff. So that's helpful.
That's where that number came from?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's pretty small.
It is pretty small.
Pretty small. I don't know that would designate that side as the actual visitor side, the go-to side, but it'd be a start. I mean, you could do something with it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So parking is needed, right?
Parking's
I mean, we've
needed.
had,
Well, I mean,
And
we're,
that-
we're getting ready to finish up this parking lot under the cell tower, right?
Yeah.
And so we're gonna have some new additional parking. And let's see what that does from a parking perspective. This is kind of a different conversation about, creating the kind of low impact side of the park and the higher impact side of the park and having separate parking so that people know where they're going based on what they're planning to do, which we have talked about many times. The bigger, the ADA trail, because we had done some pricing work on that based on, remember back when we had the PATH grant? We were talking about trying to use the section of the money that we had for that all inside the park and doing, the hard surface trail that somebody in a wheelchair could go down or whatever. it's like $1 million just to do, they're so expensive, to do the kind of concrete kind of trail that you can go on with a wheelchair and all. I don't know if that's what you're thinking, but they're very expensive. That would be the kind of thing you'd want to go for a grant for, because there are definitely grants out there that support that kind of thing. So do you think maybe that's the answer? Should we try to see if we can get one of those grants and build a parking lot to support it if we can, or?
I think that's a good idea. At least pursue it.
Probably need 20% match.
Well, maybe we
Yeah, fair
can
enough.
finish working through the list, because
Yeah, no,
what
fair
I'm
enough.
sort of looking at is Cochrane Mill Park is pretty well built out, and yeah, it's overused, but it has amenities. Hutchinson Ferry Park is still the diamond in the rough. We've got the Riverlands Park coming up, but still more people would use Hutchinson Ferry Park if there was a restroom, a couple of picnic tables. I visited 2 parks this last week that had those, I don't know what they're called, adult playgrounds where their fitness playground, it is a set of 6 exercise machines you can use.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Those seem to be really popular, but I think just having a restroom and a couple more picnic tables at Hutchinson Ferry Park would go a long way.
There's a real opportunity there too, right? Because the design that we have for the bathrooms at the other park will have contractors out building those that TPL is paying for.
And it would be great just to mimic that, so all 3 of our parks kind of have this consistent feel to it. What do you have people in your district, Camille and Troy, that use Hutchinson Ferry, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the other things that
Other
on
things on
the
the
gates, the fencing for outcropping and power. Well, power, yeah, no brainer.
In the-
Power.
Yeah, in the Parks Commission, on the gates and the fencing, they're in favor of that too, and we are as well. We can use the same contractors that we use for our fencing here at City Hall and bring them out there, and it's per linear foot, that's where we came up with this pricing, so.
And the fencing for the outcropping is because it's like this really sensitive environmental
Right.
zone, people go walking, yeah.
So that's some, again, back to low-hanging fruit stuff, I think that we can move forward with, and a lot of this is great discussion, because this is gonna help next month, we're gonna have our, 2-on-2 budget discussion. So this discussion will move
Help
right into our
prioritize.
budget discussion, so we say, hey, remember we talked about this at the work session, let's go ahead and put it in the budget and see where we end up.
Well, if you contract it out uniformly, across the parks, you're gonna get better prices anyway.
Right,
sure.
right.
So you
Especially with the
need- you need to
restrooms,
do that.
absolutely.
So,
And if you did everything on your list for Hutchinson Ferry Park, that would still be under $200,000, still leaving you $300,000 for these other things on the list. If we want to continue down and look at the
But
list.
we don't have $500,000.
Oh, you don't, oh, that's how much all the
That's
things
total.
cost,
We
right?
don't have that money.
No, okay. How much do we have, Robbie? Give us that.
Oh,
Was it 240, wasn't
It's
it?
down, we've been, obviously, because we've been using it for other project stuff, so our fund balance is probably down around 117, 112, something like that.
Ah, okay.
But it builds up again, right?
Well, it builds
So,
up
like,
every
you
month.
could do a project
It
for
ends
sure.
up building up every month. That's gonna change here, because we're gonna start charging the 8% rate now. So that's 1% more of hotel motel, but instead of 32.14% that goes to the Atlantic Convention and Visitors Bureau, it's gonna go from 32 to 43.75% of that money is gonna go to the Chattahoochee Hills Convention and Visitors.
But the park coming to us is the same.
So if we wanted to do a similar restroom, the other parks, we'd also need the septic in the well. So do you have an idea what that ballpark is?
Yeah, I've got it down here. I talked to some septic tank companies, and as I said, got things out of Covington, got a better deal. It was like $6,500 for septic tank and field lines and such, which is a pretty good price for that kind of stuff.
it's cheap.
It
But-
is.
And what are
I
water
don't
wells
necessarily
for?
believe it.
Wells are probably, where's Ken, $7,000 or $10,000? Something like that,
Yeah.
depending on how deep. All that to say, would $117,000 wouldn't cover that necessarily then?
For a restroom?
The restroom, the well, and the septic?
No.
No. And you can't,
Just from,
No, but by the
bricks and
time you-
mortar are gonna cost like $150 if you do it right with four person.
By the time you got it done, you'd have that much money in the account to pay the bills.
Yeah.
If we pulled the trigger on it, spring or whatever. Because that money's going to build up.
could I ask Diana? Diana, with your, and the other Parks Commission members, of the things that are on the list, would that be your priority suggestion, or?
Cochrane Park is used so much, and people get turned away because we don't have enough parking. So I think that's more of a priority than renting the Hutchinson Ferry Park, because it's not being used much cell lot will solve the problem of parking, and then we can think about funding something else, but right now, I think
Why?
what Robbie called the low-hanging fruit of putting up the fences, you know, that wouldn't be very expensive, and that really is important. I'll bet you very well.
So the current, finishing out the parking lot around the cell tower, is that already budgeted? Is that, where are we on that one?
Yeah, that one's, I mean, Daryl's gonna do some more gravel on top. He's already done the aesthetics and stuff and put in some drain pipes, all the stormwater stuff. We're gonna put some railroad ties out there and she's already started doing. We're just waiting on it to go live. And of course, they didn't give us a date. They just said it's usually 6 months from the time the tower is completely erected and power's run to it. So we're in that window right now. But once the cell tower's open, we're opening that lot.
Okay, so they don't want us using it until they've opened the
Because
tower?
they're
They've
still-
still got to come in.
They still gotta come in and do stuff. So once it's live, we open a lot.
And then Robbie, was that on your list? Oh,
One other thing about Copper Mill Park that Daryl keeps reminding us of is that our restroom facilities are just not really
Hanging on by a
sufficient for the
thread.
amount of use that park's getting. So we really need to think about adding
Expanding that.
restrooms there, probably more than we need restrooms that are just very right.
so if we were to have amenities on the other side of the park, when we know we don't have electricity over there, there used to be a restroom over there, so if there was electricity, I don't know where it went. If there was water, I don't know where it went. But when I first moved here, there was a restroom up on the hill, you remember that, Ken, on the other side? So all that to say, I don't know if we hold off and wait till the cell tower parking lot is done and then look at that. Still think we need parking on the other side because it's also going to feed into the safety issue of people getting lost if we can direct first-time users over there. And then also have a restroom over there. A lot of people hike there and there's, no restroom.
I want to add on to what Diana said about the restroom, so that you can go visit the park, see where the trail lines are, there's so much use. A lot of extra water,
Yeah,
lots,
Yeah.
lots.
What does that mean?
The bathroom are not designed for much use that we're using.
right, you're going to need
So
a
we
bigger
need,
field or something.
we need something different,
Oh, a new trail.
updated.
So Daryl, you saying it's, you say more water usage or it's boiling up?
The fill lines
Right, they're boiling
not
up.
holding, think how many.
Okay, so it's
Yeah, yeah.
actually boiling up. Okay, all right.
Okay, so that's something, that's an actual, gotta fix that,
Yeah,
right? There's not
that's an
an option there. So
environmental
let's,
issue.
If we're going to do this, we should always think for sure, let's go to another restroom over there, bigger, somewhere in there. If we have to.
let's,
That's a must.
yeah, that's a must. All right, so good input, right?
One more thing, Daryl, when we're thinking about building that restroom over there, I could have swore we used to have an outdoor drinking fountain there. And it's even more important during the winter when the restroom is shut, there's no water, and people have been asking for that, and there's really no quick place to just go buy water.
Enough to your point, if you put something outside, you have risk of it freezing. And usually when I go to work, I use there to.
Camelbacks, yeah. Oh, and one other point. So we haven't finished building out the little scout hut yet. So the walls need finishing and inside needs finishing.
The Ranger station?
Ranger station.
Yeah, I mean, the inside's finished. I mean, we got it sealed, and we just got to get electrical to it. Daryl's running the conduit, and Greystone Power's gonna run electrical to it. And then we just outfit it, or upfit it. How we talk about a police and fire.
That's what I was
upfit the
asking
vehicle.
about.
We'll upfit it with,
Walls.
stuff. Well, it's got walls. So, just chairs, refrigerator, desk for, Ranger Station, have brochures, hand out trail maps and those kind of things. It'd be, again, because when people see this, they're gonna think, oh, I got a question. They're gonna walk up there and they're gonna see somebody, whether it's our park ranger, whether it's one of our volunteers, or whether it's our Parks Commission members that say, hey, I wanna go out here and hang out on Saturday and, interact with the public. Chip's out there a lot. He might wanna go in a ranger station and hang out there and meet with folks coming there and say, hey, take this trail, because he knows a lot about it.
Is that an expense that's on this list, Robbie?
That's something we can take out of the parks budget, because it's not, those aren't
it's our-
crazy expenses. I don't want to take it out, we could take it out of hotel motel, but we can upfit it. I'm gonna say upfit it.
So what do you think?
So I feel like I've gotten a sense of your priorities. I want to make sure that if Troy or Camille or Ruby
Richie's on the line
I've
too.
gotten your stuff from back here, but like just the rest of the list and Richie, just to make sure, because again, to Robbie's point, this is going to feed into our budget conversations that are coming up here momentarily, where, this will all actually be then in our budget based on the kind of feel for priority that we've gotten. So let me just, Ruby, was there anything else you wanted to,
No, I'm good, thank you.
Troy?
No, it's just that the point that Robbie brought forth on the over usage of that one particular restroom facility, we need to bring that to the top.
Right. Richie?
Oh, yeah, my only thing is with the parks, I mean, they do a good job out there. I would like to see some mulch put on that playground, and some of those roots on those trails maybe need to be knocked down. I remember when they first put the crush and run on them right there, it really looked good. But no, I mean, the Parks Commission does a good job. And, as far as Hutchinson Ferry Park goes, I do think that if we can get some amenities over there, we can, get some traffic over there using that park, maybe take a little pressure off Cockrell Mill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Camille, you have any other thoughts?
No, I'm kind of in line with what we're thinking about, just the small things like electrical, or not small, but things that need to be done, like back here, electrical, then some of the, few of those things at Hutchinson Ferry. And then if we have to spend the money on the restroom at Cochrane Mill, And I agree. I mean, I don't know, I've heard about the water issue too, someone asking about water. I mean, can we cut it off? I mean, when it's 105, maybe we have access to water over there, and then just cut it off in the winter and just say it's not available then? I don't know. I mean, it seems like we can have
It'd be
something.
nice to have a bottle filler instead of having to use the sink, right?
Yeah,
But-
maybe.
And another thing as far as the electrical back here, if we do go with a disconnect back there, which is, I mean, that's fine. They might put it in, but they'll probably make you put a meter in rather than just a fee. So they'll probably make you put a meter structure in as well as a service. So, I mean, that's, you get an engineer out here to do that, so let you, yeah.
You're right, that's why I said earlier, that's exactly what
Right,
panel meters.
right. Yeah,
I mean, it's-
so, I
it's
mean,
a-
there's a difference in cost there, is what I'm saying. I don't know, yeah.
But, it's our town green, it's getting used a lot, and it'll continue to. be used a lot.
Absolutely, and it may be a worthwhile venture, so.
Get my cafe lights.
All right, so we'll move on
Thank you for that.
from that one. The next one is our conversation. We've been having this ongoing conversation for years and years with Fulton County about the fact that there's supposedly some bit of money that is operating money that could be spent here serving seniors in Chattahoochee Hills. They've made very clear that they don't have capital money available for us. And then, here recently, we went and asked for some of that money and we're basically told no. And I think some of that is hangover from the local option sales tax negotiations, because Fulton County still is feeling a little, hurt at the level that they got. That may pass and we may be able to join that conversation again. But in the meantime, there's been this kind of ongoing conversation about what we can and should do here to add to the services that are available to our city's citizens right now, but only available through senior centers in Palmetto or Fairburn or somewhere else. They don't have a physical facility here. So again, that's the framing that I know about that, and anything that anybody wants to say beyond that.
So I don't know that there's anything we really can do outside of community outreach. We're trying to work to have at least a quarterly luncheon for seniors with some type of programming. So that'd be 4 times a year. So far, we've been really fortunate that Community Brickworks is going to provide part of the meal, and then we've asked church to provide the other part. So that's not a cost. And then we've, I don't know how this is going to work yet, but the idea is that it would be free for seniors 60 years and older, and anyone else who'd like to attend. We were asking for a $3 donation. Don't know what we do with that $3. If we got $3, if it would roll back into the food or some type of programming. So the event we're having coming up on the 17th, we're asking Fulton County is going to come down, Fulton County Senior Service, and give an update. And Jill, who lives in Chattahoochee Hills and works for AARP, is going to give an update. We'll have the meal and we'll do some entertainment. And Greg, I know you used to do blood pressure checks. I don't know if that's an option to do that there. Although I've learned to do that before you eat dessert, right? Okay. So I think really now with our budget, that's probably all we can or should do.
I think that's probably right.
Right. And I think next time when the budget come up, we'll have a better idea. I think we were not clear on what to put in there. So this time we'll be clear of what to actually ask for.
I think the difficulty too was that our commissioner wasn't clear.
He wasn't clear,
on
right.
what the procedures were and was asking for things that had he known better,
Capital.
he would have asked for,
Right.
right? So, yeah. Good, okay. Next up is a conversation about some of the stuff that's going on with Public Works, a couple of the particular issues, and then more importantly, the T-Splost projects. And again, tiny bit of context there. We get a certain amount of money every month from the T-Splost, which is the transportation special local option sales tax. We save that money up sometimes for a year or two to have enough to do a meaningful slate of projects. One of the realities about paving is that they charge you a lot just for mobilization. And once they're out, it's much cheaper to add miles to a project. It's why they're always trying to find driveways to pave when they're out paving the roads nearby, because they've already got the trucks coming. So we've intentionally been kind of building that pot. And the other thing too, and I talk about this a lot, the money that is in the fund balance, we carry more than we need to as our rainy day fund, which is smart, but we also have been building up money there to add to that T-Splost pot. And so we've got a pretty good chunk of money. And the paradigm we've always used is that the engineers and the people in Public Works who are out working on the roads know which ones are in worse shape and which ones need the work, and make a recommendation based on the amount of money we're going to throw their way. And would love to hear from, we've got both of them here today, so. Gerald loves the microphone. Wayne, it appears not quite as much, so it's.
They both need to look like it needs to come down a bit, though.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Wayne Smith, formerly with D.W. Smith Design Group, but recently have joined a longtime friend and colleague at Keck and Wood and working with them, and going to continue. I'm thankful for the privilege of continuing my service to the city. And we've been working through the T-Splost.
Must be that speaker. It got
Poltergeist.
It's crazy though.
So, again, it's been a pleasure to work with the city for a number of years now. So we have history, and we have, one of the things that you all have done wisely is you have made preparation on a number of roads that puts us in a position to now, what we're proposing for this year is to let a contract that is totally resurfacing. So a lot of the deep patching and a lot of that repair work, the crack sealing, all of those things that are intended to strengthen the structure of the road and add to the longevity of the road have been accomplished, to your credit. And so now we're in a position, we believe, to come back and now finish the job on those roads, particularly what we're looking at this year for your consideration. And certainly we can alter this, but Hutchison Ferry, as you know, that's a very heavily traveled road. It's one of the old Fulton County roads that has a good base and has a good structure, but takes a lot of traffic. And so we did the crack sealing, striping, and the deep patching on that road last year in anticipation of hopefully being able to resurface that this year. The southern portion of Rico Road was done 2 years ago. So similarly, it had the deep patching and the repair work done to strengthen it and stabilize it. And we're now in a position that we would suggest that that be part of your consideration, is resurfacing that portion of Rico Road. And then the third There are other options, obviously, but the third one that we're suggesting for your consideration this year is Rivertown. Again, we've done a lot of repair work, so we've worked with multiple sections where some places we had a lot of issues and other places not so much. So through deep patching, crack sealing, et cetera, we believe we have that stabilized, and now we'd like to get that finish coat, top coat on it, which then really extends the life. And it increases the safety a lot, because once we get the road resurfaced, then all of the striping is new temporary pavement markers, all of those things are brand new. And so then you have a road that you're looking at conceivably easily 10 years of life, of good life expectancy. And some of these roads will last 15 and 20. So that's the starting place. I have run some quote budget numbers. They're always estimates. The road contracting business in Georgia has been highly utilized and is frankly understaffed. There aren't enough people in that business in Georgia for all the needs and all the work that's going on with cities, counties, and with Georgia DOT. That being said, we're estimating that Hutchinson Ferry, Rico Road, and Rivertown could all be accomplished for approximately $2.4 million. Now, Robbie has all the numbers as to what the fund balances are and the T-SPLOST account and various other things. So I don't get into that, but what we try to do is give you good budget numbers to plan with, and then you can determine what level of funding you'd like to propose. Obviously, you realize that the larger volume of work we bid in one contract, the better unit prices we get.
So Wayne, could you tell us the distance and mileage? Is it all of Hutchinson Ferry Road from Pound? No.
Hutchinson Ferry Road, from Highway 70 north to almost.
No.
Hudson Ferry will be from Watkins to our city limit to Watkins.
Right, I'm sorry.
To city limit, north or south? What?
Palmetto.
Palmetto.
From the
Okay.
children's home to, yeah.
Right.
And striping from that line all the way to Sardis. Extended on, because that, from the hill, pretty much around the hill area, 470.
It's in good shape.
It's in good shape. Just gonna got this striping on further down.
In Rico Road, it sounded like you were talking about the part that had already been worked on. Are you talking about the other part?
We're talking about the south.
Going towards
From
Serenby,
Parkway
to Serenby, right?
No, not the south.
To Hutchinson.
Hudson Ferry.
Right, okay.
Right, because 2 years ago, we did the deep patching and repair work on it. So we let it go another year. We treated other problems last year that we thought were higher priority. And so we believe this is at the stage, it needs to get resurfaced now before we begin to lose some of the benefits of the work we did 2 years ago.
And then Rivertown from,
where?
We're thinking about where they left off
right,
and then finish all the way up. down
that
to
makes
City
sense.
Road.
Where is that, Tom?
It's, no, you go ahead.
Cocker Mill.
From
From Cedar Grove, okay.
All the way down
all the way down.
How many miles total is that, guys?
to 70.
Oh, okay.
To Cedar Grove.
I
mean, to,
have it
Campbell Broadway.
roughed up at 4.3 miles approximately on Hutchinson Ferry. Then, let's see, which is, we're figuring it in lane miles, so that's 8.6 lane miles. Rivertown, 2 3/4 miles, so approximately 5.5 lane miles.
13.
Rico. I have that being at approximately 800,000, so if it wasn't so late and I wasn't so tired, I could tell you what that worked out to in terms of the number of miles.
We'll
About
have that
16, 17 miles, somewhere in there total lane miles.
lane miles, yeah, about half of that in mileage, yep.
Yes.
And that includes striping and everything,
And shoulder building.
Yeah, what we would do.
and shoulders.
Yep.
So we would come in and do what's called leveling. So as you know, the roads will have some irregularity. So we quote level it, which is to reestablish good crown so that you have good drainage.
Correct.
We surface it with the topping. We would do all of the striping. We would add raised pavement markers, and we would build and grass the shoulders. So when this work would be accomplished, visually, you're gonna have a new road.
The other thing is there's a chunk of Cochrane Mill to the north there. That is look, so we right now have line of sight to $2.5 million in between Fund Balance and T-Splost. I think that's a little pessimistic. I think we can get a couple 100,000 more. And so there's a chunk of Cochrane Mill, like where Friendship Church is, it's in pretty bad shape. And then also up where Cedar Grove and Cochrane Mill cross, up close to Browns Lake Road there.
Yeah.
And yeah, and the striping too, right? So I think we can,
We certainly have identified Cochrane Mill with very specific needs as well.
Right.
And so, again, what we can do, Gerald and I can work together to itemize that a little more clearly for you, to add it to the information that we shared this evening. And then y'all can take all of that into consideration.
it's going to come down to two things, right? There's the opportunistic part of this. How much money do we have when we know when they're coming, right? And if they're going to be doing the paving in September, we have more money than if they're doing it in May or whatever. So there's a piece of that. And then there's also what they actually charge us, right? And right now we're estimating. So, you know, if we do better on either of those counts, we know what the next one would be. Because again, when they're mobilized, it's never cheaper than right then, right? So.
And
That's right.
the most work that we've worked, roads that we've looked at, we know for sure. Rico, Tyson Ferry, and Rivertown are in need. Rico is definitely in need.
Yeah, Rico
It's
is,
falling
You
apart.
travel it, we're patching it all the time. And then, Rivertown, them are needs, them are high priority.
now Rico, are we talking about as far, yeah,
Yes, sir.
are we talking about striping the outside of it, the whole length of
It'll be
Rico?
top, like the level,
Okay.
top, stripe, and shoulder.
Okay,
Yes.
there's a lot of elderly people out Rico, so.
All of them will be done that way. And again,
Okay.
we've identified a couple of these spaces where we don't have visible striping that we're gonna go pick up too while they're out doing the striping.
Yeah, in our defense, we tried, y'all remember last year, we tried to, when they was here striping, we tried to go ahead and get them to go ahead and strike extra after our contract was over.
Right,
And we just couldn't, we just couldn't get them to do it. Everybody was so busy.
right.
They had already had prior commitments. They would.
This is a big enough
One-
job that we'll get.
Wayne, how volatile is your pricing right now as far as the oil industry and stuff? I mean, that's a general question. I
Well, it
know.
always fluctuates, and so what we have done is we've taken real prices from last year. We've
Right.
added an inflationary percentage to that.
Okay,
We picked 10%, whether that's the right number or the wrong number, the market will tell us. In recent years, Georgia DOT has let more work than they have historically ever done. And so the reality is there aren't enough road paving contractors in Metro Atlanta to hold the prices down on all of this work.
right,
That's just an economic reality.
sure.
And so, with the progress that Georgia DOT and other communities have made, I'm hopeful that prices will stabilize somewhat. But as you indicated, the cost of oil-based products, petroleum, and therefore the asphalt components continues to go up.
Thank you, Wayne.
All right.
Any other questions?
That'll all, I mean, again, this will all be a part of our budgeting process, but this is the kind of heads up on on where we are with it. And again, I think we may be able to do a little more than what we're talking about as we work our way through the budget process. And, you know, as we were talking about this, we are at a point with some of these roads where we have done stabilization of the places that are in worst shape, but if we don't do a top coat to hold the stuff together, we'll have a lot more work to do 2 or 3 years down the road. It's really important that we get this done.
But then we can take credit for what you've allowed us to do the last couple of times, building and stuff, saved the city lots of headache and the money throughout. We were talking earlier, how proud we were that how far we've come.
Yeah.
with The little bit of money we've had. We've done a great job with what we've done as a team. Absolutely.
And thanks to all staff, right? Because part of the reason that we have this extra money that we're being able to pile into this fund is because everybody does such a good job of underspending their budgets. So while you're out, just quick update on the Garrett's Ferry Bridge. Have we heard any more recently?
Yeah, I reached back out to GDOT on a multifaceted email about Garrett's Ferry Bridge.
saw that.
So yeah, copies you on it, blind copies on it, but anyway, so you were aware. Unrelated though, I think our crack public safety staff figured out this popping noise, we believe, because the officer was here with his radio and it stopped when he left. Brought a radio in here and turned it on and it started going again. So we think it's the 800 megahertz interference.
That makes sense.
Sorry about that.
Robbie, how do we get past that? We're waiting on DOT to pick up the phone and give us an answer. That just seems unacceptable. Or, the last guy left and the new guy doesn't know what's going on. It's supposed to be done by this spring. That's like next month.
It's perseverance. It's just us doing what we're doing. It's just like staying on top of it. It's kind of like with your kids. Hey, take the trash out, take the trash out. I'll take it.
I want to go take a picket sign and go down to GDOT and then call channel, news and say our road's been out, bridge has been out for 3 years. Fix my bridge.
Yeah, I mean, I see, I get what you're saying. I try not to pick fights with the 800-pound gorilla.
Right.
And I know it's going to be for free, but
Please don't do that. And part of the rationale, no, I mean, to be clear, because there's the other bridge on Atlanta Noonan that we're waiting for. There's the whole speed limit issue that we've been fighting now for 3 years, right? And we're in the midst of DRI processes on things, and there's going to be this opportunity to get rid of the rest of the parkway, hopefully, in some of these conversations. And like that one single thing, getting rid of that $6 million bridge that we don't ever want to have to repair. I mean, yes, and so
You gotta remember that
if we're here in this situation 4 years from now, I'm going down to picket, just saying,
that's why.
come on.
Who? Never seen her before. I have no idea who that is.
y'all-
Just we talked for a second about the Verizon tower. Was there any, is somewhere in the next 6 months? That's all we know, right?
Yeah, then that's the thing. They told us when they were finished, it would be 6 months when they got tower up. So I noticed today there was crews out there working on the tower itself.
Okay,
So they've not one time said the tower is complete. So once they say the tower is complete, we know they're 6 months out.
got it.
So that's why we haven't gravelled and finished the parking lot, because they do have trucks that are in and out, in and out, in and out. It's a waste of money. So there's no sense in us talking and finishing.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Chief Brett, if you would. So I'm going to say something, and I apologize for repeating myself for people that have already read the weekly newsletter, but I was out there at the fire in Serenbe now a couple weeks ago and was just so impressed to see all of the training that I know you've done, all the preparation I know you've done, absolutely working perfectly. We had our truck show up as quickly as it possibly could have gotten there. It was right there putting water on the fire after taking care of the people that had jumped out of the house. We had water on, we had Palmetto and Coweta and Fairburn and City of South Fulton all show up. Ladder trucks putting water on the fire, trucks putting water on the houses next door, 15 feet away, no damage. The shuttle was happening to keep all those trucks full. They were running shuttles to other hydrants with all those other departments. That was perfect. The ballet of one empty truck moving out as another full one came in. And I've even gotten calls from a couple of people that were there and other people that drove by to see what was going on, who were firefighters, who were just, people that have been in the fire service for 30 years saying, I've never seen it better choreographed. And I think about the training that you've done, having all those departments out doing shuttle training here in town, having those departments out driving through Serenbe so that they know the lay of the land and all of that. And just once again, I'm reminded how lucky we are to have you here. And I've heard that from the other chiefs. I mean, it was impressive. So thank you for all of that. And I know people are very interested to know where we are in the investigation and all the other stuff that's going on.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. It is a team effort.
No question.
Absolutely a team. I asked Robbie to help me illustrate for you how this impacted us and how these things unfolded just in a very, very basic way. I know you're seeing some things in the media, you've seen things on social media, but Robbie, if you'll just pull up we'll start with any of those images there. That graphic represents our scene operation plan retrospectively. The circle, of course, is 33 Swan Ridge. It was a rather large home, 2-story with a subgrade area that included a recreation room, and outside of it, a patio, pool, jacuzzi, and so forth. The different indicators there show, how we had stacked up the various apparatus there on Swan Ridge. Mayor mentioned that we needed water, and that's because the amount of water volume on the main serving the hydrants along Swan Ridge was just not adequate. But we could bring in tankers, our own tanker, the one of South Fulton and the one from Coweta, in good enough time to be able to just send water, supplemental water, volume water into the operation of the tank, the ladder truck and our engine. So we were trying to suppress and we were trying to protect, of course, okay? And it did run well. And it ran well, I think, because of a lot of muscle memory from the training, not because of some maestro direction, but people knew what to do. And that is what you hope for.
What are the squares, Greg? I can't see. Are those the actual
Those are
trucks
fire
or?
trucks.
Okay.
Sorry, yes. So closest to the round circle there, to the top, you would see Med 51 and Car 500 and Engine 31. Okay, nearest the top. And that's important because that's the side where our patients were moved to, triaged, and then moved out. We had to fly one patient and get a ground transport for a second. And just incidentally, I think the female that jumped suffered 2 broken places in her back. She was the one that flew. And then the husband who jumped has a broken back and a broken sternum. And I like to tell you just how tough it is by adding that they have 3 children below the age of 12. So both at Shepherd Spinal Clinic for rehabilitation, and within the last 48 hours for a very long rehab. We've stayed in touch with them quite a bit. With respect to how the scene unfolded, when I arrived, the call came out at 8:11. When I arrived, there were 2 people laying in the street screaming from pain. Those 2 jumpers. And we immediately tried to stabilize them. Fortunately, I had some of what I needed in my truck to be able to stabilize the necks, and sent someone for a leaf from a dining room table. But just about the time we might have utilized something like that, my Med 51 crew showed up and we were to use what we call long spine cord. So it was get them out of there, good support out of South Fulton to establish a landing zone and help the patients transition from ground transport to a landing zone and into another transport so that they both left in the ways they did respectively. So I had 2 priorities. And so I always do an executive summary on an incident that includes a death or a fire. And I've just underlined a few things. So I'll just hit the high notes here. not bore you with it too much. There were a total of 6 people to be accounted for. They all were outside the structure, fortunately. That was great. 2 priorities: life safety for those injured and protect those adjacent structures. So when I arrived, it was take care first with take care of the people. Then it was let's make sure of the fire operation. So for a minute there, it was like 5 or 6 plates in the air. And then the fire crews began to arrive, and you'll see here the fire conditions when we got on, when they came on scene. That was from my viewpoint, after having pulled past the scene and up to the patients. You'll see the Palmetto Ladder Truck 31 there. It was a critical, played a huge role in suppression and protecting the exposures. The next image shows it from the opposite side of the home as you're driving up to it. And you'll see, switch on, there you, nope, next one.
Next one.
There it is. There you go. And I want you to see the 2 of them because I want you to understand the bulk of fire that we're dealing with. This was a defensive operation from the beginning. There was never going to be any entering the structure and going offensive. There was no way for that to happen. And so it was all about what we loosely refer to as surround and drown. And we were, by every measure, very successful. 2 people left the scene and are being cared for today, have good outlook for rehabilitation and walking. The structures to the left and right were completely unharmed. And that was because of water and the suppression operations that protected those structures. We had 5 departments to lean on. It takes a lot of manpower when you ramp up and then go into that situation and burn through all the adrenaline that you with, and you're carrying 70 pounds of gear. You need to swap people out. And so I was very grateful for having so many people there. There were, in fact, 24 firefighter personnel there geared up, okay, that could have been called on. And another 8 support persons representing Air Method, the helicopter, or Grady, or administrative personnel from the departments. So quite a large scene for us. We were able during the fire operations to recover a white Acura out of the garage while all was going on, and no harm to the vehicle because we were able to get it out. I would say at this point that we know that generally there is a total loss of all the structural components, the furnishings, and the personal belongings of both the rental occupants as well as the homeowner who lived there and was utilizing it as an Airbnb on the weekends. We have in our investigation, which is not complete, determined there are 2 possible sources of ignition. And we are working to try to be as final of that. We will let that information out. And of course, there are open records requests. We want to help people to get that information and facilitate, getting to some balance on that. Just finally, I would say that until that report happens, that street, although Serabee is going to begin work to open it up next week, there is still a big hazard there in terms of collapse. And we're going to hold back still the permit for them to demolish that structure. But, I'm going to tell you, Tom said this somewhere earlier, because all this really has been a blur for us for a week. It's taken a lot of hours to have that engine come in quickly and reliably start pumping 2 hand lines for suppression. Guys, I've been in another time, and then you've been here too, when I was praying for that engine to just be able to get to the scene and for the pump operations to hold up. And that shining red fella sitting there pumping that water, I was just giddy. I guess right thing for a chief to be. But I want to say a big thank you just so you guys can carry it forward to all these departments that supported us. And Palmetto was probably did the heaviest lift for us, along with our people.
And there's a second layer to that, right? As all those people rolled in and left the stations that they were in, there was further backup coming. Other stations in South Fulton were sending trucks in
South Fulton
to
and
make sure that
Collier.
we had trucks on hand if another call came in. It's really, really impressive. And those automatic aid agreements are something we started working on right at the beginning. And they're now in place all around us. And it makes a huge difference, huge difference.
Right. You know, Greg, that speaks to your relationship with all those departments.
100%.
Absolutely.
It sure feels good to look over at the
Absolutely.
people that you're asking to do things, or people that I worked with at Fulton County.
Right.
You know, and I knew these people, if I said, take over the medical and patient and aircraft operations, I knew it was gonna get done right. And I literally just took it out of my head and focused elsewhere.
Right.
And so you're right. That is, I mean, not the relationships,
No.
yes, but those
Yeah.
very capable people.
Right. Exactly. So I'm going to ask you the fun question in all of this, if there is one.
Okay.
If you had a genie in the bottle, what piece of equipment do you need next?
When I think about the growth of the city, the density as it exists right now, and the hazards or the potential as it exists right now, I know we joke about a ladder truck, but I have to say that ladder
Amen.
truck is such a vital thing.
You didn't say that. I was going to tell you that.
Now and moving forward. It really is. And I've obviously been shopping around like a kid in a candy store for those things to wait for you to ask me that question.
I'm
Be able to
asking you,
make
brother.
some ideas, put some ideas forward to the council. But
We're creating the
That's it.
circumstances to make that happen.
absolutely.
Amen.
Thinking together, working together.
So while we're all on this page and before we move on to the next thing, you know, I was there for several hours that morning. And when I got home, the very first thing I did was went on Amazon and ordered a couple of those ladders you can throw out the window from the second floor
There you
and
go.
a couple more fire extinguishers.
Hmm.
Because seeing something like that close up totally reframes in your mind, you know, what that is. So if you don't have those and you got a second floor, go get some.
I would tell you that, you know, that interior of that home, there were two couples in bedrooms upstairs and there was a couple downstairs. And one couple upstairs and the couple downstairs, immediately when they realized there was fire and smoke in the interior and the alarms are going off, they evacuated the house. The other couple hesitated just seconds, really not even a minute, just a second.
Grab
to
some stuff.
Grab personal belongings, and it was in that little bit of time that heat and smoke conditions developed to cut their egress point off down the stairway to the outside. And their choices then were limited. They had to jump.
Greg, so I don't know if you can comment on this, but one thing I found odd in the newspaper story was they said the stairway melted, and I'm wondering, how does a stairway melt?
So I've known this all along, and I was reminded the other day, when you work with the media, you need to spend some time off to the side, teaching them what you want them to say or how to say it a little bit. But they didn't melt, they burnt up. They were wood.
Wood
and,
stairs
wood
in the burn.
stairs,
Okay.
and the amount of heat and fire that was moving so quickly, it didn't take much for that interior to actually fill with smoke. And then if you're familiar with the term flash, that was what occurred, and that flash explosion on the interior ignited so much in the first and second floor.
Thanks on that.
The other one's small point relative to that, but have we gotten any updates on the South Fulton Tower? Remember they were going to do that public safety tower on the Parkway?
Right, and it was not even
Not in the
placed
budget.
on their budget for this year.
Right.
Somehow in the planning of that, though we had encouraged it all along, it was removed from their budget.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Thanks very much. Jim, just if you could update a little bit. We've had a couple of events recently that people were concerned about, and I know you've put some information out there about it. I just wanted to get a quick update.
Didn't we have another fire? in Cherry
Oh, we did
Hills?
actually have another
So-
fire. We did, yes.
Yeah, so we
actually.
had another fire.
Quick update on that as well.
Um,
Sorry, Jim.
that was the Arnold, excuse me, the Arnold residence at 8. I'm sorry, that was the Arnold residence at 8110 Cascade Palmetto Highway.
Really?
And a single story, smaller dwelling, but in that, at the time of that fire, a grandmother and 2 toddlers. And just, I'm gonna tell you real quick how that unfolded. They were watching television and the 3-year-old male says, "Look, Gigi, smoke." She turned around to look and saw the smoke building in the hallway, got up to see what could be done and realized nothing could be done because she immediately encountered a lot of smoke and heat moving at her. She grabbed the 2 children, one under each arm, and raced out of the house. And the beauty of that situation, if there's anything to it, is that they were within, that driveway was within 50 feet of the city of Palmetto city limit. So because of our automatic aid and the simultaneous alarms occurring in Chat Hills and Palmetto went in and bam, they were right on it. By the time our people got there, they were ready to go in and we were going in with them and cut the fire off on the front left corner of the structure, confined it to a bedroom. And even though there's a lot of smoke damage there in that home is very much renovatable, if that's a term. And just a footnote there, that family, unfortunately, that home's tied up in probate. That family does not have insurance on that structure. And so we helped them with WSP get a plan for a GoFundMe account. And I know they would appreciate support.
Yeah, the Arnolds, they've been there forever.
They've been around for a while.
That's
I
right.
realize my wife and Ruby and
Yeah,
Brian and different
everyone
ones
knows them.
that have been, were in school with them. They had smoke detectors. They were not working. They were not working. They had not changed batteries in them.
What's the date? That date just happened too, right? We were supposed to check.
When
in
you
February.
change your time,
It was
change
Monday.
your
There you go,
bag.
yeah.
Daylight savings time is next week.
About to happen. There you go.
Change your time, change your bag.
Bring back into life. Bring that.
Don't listen to Ron.
Generally
Thanks, Greg.
speaking, never.
Spring.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Wait, no, I'm just kidding.
You want me to turn my radio?
No, just go.
Turn my
Just
radio
go.
back on?
Just go.
Yeah,
Just go.
that's helpful.
Not really a lot of updates, but I'll just remind the incident from November 4th. That suspect was arrested in Alabama and is facing homicide and rape charges. We will probably never see him. He will never leave the Alabama. We do have warrants. They haven't been served because he's being held. We're in line.
Yeah.
With Coweta County, who also has warrants for him for kidnapping and other charges. But he most likely will never leave the state of Alabama.
So that's the one that the shooting took
Yes,
place.
sir. That was on November 4th. On January 21st, that subject, Anthony Harrison. He is in custody. He is being charged with felon in possession of a firearm, criminal trespass, and false name. And so his prosecution is pending. He was transferred to a hospital for mental health evaluation and stuff, but he is in custody. So that's the one, Hudson
The
Ferry
one-
Gravel Road.
Right.
Gravel Road, right.
Both of those were random acts. These were people, we believe, had no intention of coming to Chat Hills to commit crimes. They were both passing through. The Hudson Ferry at Gravel Road on January 21st, had they not struck the deer and disabled their car, would not stop.
Right.
And so I want to reassure the community that there's not, our community is not being targeted by people for these types of crimes. It's 2 that occurred within a 3-month period. Again, they were people that were passing through and they were crimes of opportunity as they were passing through due to the circumstances.
The other thing I want to talk about a little bit is some of our community-oriented policing initiatives and things that we're doing. Our officers do foot patrols. They're limited areas because of our community. We're not an urban environment to do foot patrols. But we do primarily Charlie's up on the north end and Serenbe over on the south end. You will see officers through there. Officer Codrington is well known in Serenbe. He loves his foot patrols over there and does spend a lot of time. And like I said, we spend a lot of time up here in the Charlie's area too, walking around. It's very busy. Just make sure that we're seen.
Chief, how much violent crimes taking place in Serenbe? Any kind of violent crime or anything?
No, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to ask. Okay, thank you.
The majority of the crimes that we're seeing throughout our community are property.
Okay,
There's nowhere specifically in the city where we're seeing more violent crimes than others.
yeah,
A big part of it, for me is I want people to become, used to seeing our officers. I want to create relationships with the community.
sure,
And so we go to the more populated areas. Obviously, we can reach more people.
Sure.
And with that familiarity with the officers and stuff, we tend to be more open with them, and I want them more comfortable calling us.
sure,
I still to this day receive Facebook messages and weekend voicemails about crimes in progress.
right.
And
That's
Saturday, for example, I'm in Pelham, Alabama, racing my mountain bike.
sure,
My phone's in the truck. I wasn't on Facebook for 6+ hours. I'm trying to get them accustomed to call 911. I trust
sure,
that will come and that will help. And so that's the
Right.
purpose of the foot patrols and reaching the community
right.
in that manner.
And I know you've done a lot of positive stuff as far as some of the neighborhood watch stuff that's happening around Jones Ferry and Hamilton, and all that. We
Renee
appreciate
Prince
that.
actually reached out to me.
Right.
And we're starting what's called PAC, Police and Citizens Together.
Right,
She has volunteered to be the neighborhood captain for the Hamilton Road area, so that's going to
Cool.
be our first PAC group.
right,
And so we're still in the early stages of that, but I am working with her. And so what'll happen once this is online is they'll be assigned an officer. That'll be their officer, right? Their point of contact. So you have, again, that familiarity. Right? So they can reach out and email and contact that officer about issues or concerns that they may have
sure,
in that area. And it's a great way to communicate with the community, get the right word out. As we talked about the last council meeting, the one Facebook post that was based purely on speculation and rumor, and it got people really worked up. And it's not what happened.
Mhm.
And so again, I'm trying to find better ways to communicate what's going on, so that we don't cause undue alarm.
right. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm just curious. I'm getting a lot of calls, from different people. So just trying to dig into what's going on.
In regards to that.
Well, all of it, just, and me and you probably need to talk later on sometime. That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely.
Chief Little, so I noticed a couple of times you will finally respond on at least the one Facebook group. And I wonder if a better way would be to, and you probably do this already, respond on the cities and the police Facebook group, and then we can send people there so they know to go to the city, not some remote Facebook group. I need to do that as well, because you just get to where you respond there, and that's not the appropriate place to respond. It's really, I don't know.
Well, I have not responded on
The other
rants
one.
and raves or the happenings pages. I don't, I'm not sure they realize.
Okay.
No,
Lurking.
I don't respond, typically I will respond on this page, if there's a response necessary.
Hey, Chief, are we fully staffed?
Yes, sir.
And how many do we have on duty now at nighttime?
We have 2.
And what hours do those cover?
1800 to 0600.
Okay. Thank you.
Good deal. Thanks, Jim. Anything else, anybody? Jim, more from you? Oh, I'm sorry. No, you don't.
Oh, no, you wanted summer. Another thing we're doing on March 17th, here at City Hall from 6 to 8 p.m. We're doing an internet safety class. Primarily targeted more at kids, the adults can come as well. About some of the dangers and do's and don'ts when you're on the internet or using apps. To share, not to share. We've had some issues that came up. So, hosting that.
What time is that, Jim?
It's from 6 to 8 p.m. on March 17th. It'll be here at City Hall.
Make sure to invite Sandy when she gets back from Portugal, where she sent me emails today asking for money.
Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm also, Ruby approached me about doing a coffee with a cop. And so we'll be doing that as well. Many of my officers.
Awesome.
Together and do that event. We've also are planning to mid to late summer to do a citizens police academy.
Good.
I think it's important that I know I have one resident invited for a ride along. And it's typical of what I've seen over my career. Once you have that experience and you understand what's going on, you can see it, you can hear it. It just gives you a different perspective of what's going on with your police department and what the officers see, what they hear, how they respond, why they respond, and ask questions. And it's just a great experience for everyone, the officers and the citizens. So like I said, I'm planning to do that mid to late summer. It'll be approximately 8 weeks, one night a week, covering all the different aspects of what we do, including use of force training. Tyrone has what's called a FAST machine, a firearms training simulator. It's a video interactive use of force training. Again, very transformational experience and training. To understand what the officers are doing, why, how they're trained. I think that's it. That's all the community initiatives that we're working on right now.
Chief Little, just really quickly, thank you I wanted to just mention about the officer on foot in Cerami, which is great. And then, just with this time change and right, it's gonna be darker earlier, right? Yes, because we're springing forward.
Yes.
Darker later. No.
So yeah, right. So folks are coming in the dark
Yeah, the sun
to
won't
work.
come up till 8 a.m.
That's right. So they'll be in the dark. So I guess my point would be like, I know y'all been with the Daisy and the businesses within Serenbe and the folks are going in early to open up shop. Just pay extra attention to those folks that are opening and having deliveries early mornings and then closing down late at night through there. I think just some extra.
The other part of that, it goes back to the communication. If we're not providing a service, if they want those services and we're not doing it, just need to call us at like an extra patrol. And they can call here, they don't have to call 911. We say during these hours, can you please, and we'd be happy to do that.
I think y'all, you've been doing it. I just think they just want to make,
Yes, sir.
just a
Well,
heightened concern when anybody
We run 2 officers.
have
per
new
shift.
employees and they're,
Your call volume is increasing, but I'm still trying to maintain that level of record controls.
Thank you.
And I want to say thank you for the, it's the second time I've experienced calling in a stray dog and that it just worked so perfectly. From 911, understanding what the heck I was talking about and say, I need you to send this to Chattahoochee Hills Police. 10 minutes later, Officer Friendly shows up, gets the dog, brings him to City Hall. I mean, I know it may be a little thing to the community, but it's a big thing to know that, we're doing what we can to try to rehome pets. I mean, if that was someone's family pet, I know that they would really appreciate that. So I wanted to say thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Michael? So a couple things here.
A couple of fairly brief things. First one is Crossroads Communities updates. As you know, we had the planning process up in Campbellton some years ago. We have been stymied a little bit because our partner up there in the city of South Fulton was half the project, has not had any consistent representation in my counterpart's office. So it's hard to move forward with them on that. Most of the kinds of projects that we would follow up with are the kinds of things I think that we would want to share costs and stuff with. So not much progress there. Looking at maybe seeking a grant for zoning work, but in general, that's not the kind of thing that the ARC is really the provider of the grants is really geared for. So that seems like a bit of a long shot, but we may get something in this year to make a proposal to them. And then, of course, Rico Process Community, we have.
I'm here next meeting. I want you here next meeting. This is ridiculous. We paid way too much money for this, to be doing this, and fix it. So, sorry, Mike, if you can.
Folks working on the next step is scheduling a public meeting where people can get a look at work that's been done, provide some feedback, understand what we're talking about for Rico, and then beyond that, we work on assuming things go well with the public meeting, work on some zoning and design guidelines, and get that in front of council for adoption if everyone's happy with.
I know they've been meeting with some of the people in the community in the area because I've heard some of that feedback.
That's
so
right. They've been meeting with property owners, some of the property owners who property is affected by the proposed plan so far. They've gotten good responses from people. Still have some people to try to get a hold of, but so far it sounds like everything sounds positive.
So Mike, when would that? When is the public?
Turn on your button.
It's up here.
Oh, you turned her off?
We're watching the
That's
device
one way
to
of
see,
doing it.
to see which one is.
We're watching the board light up.
You have to push your button.
No, I'm on now.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
So do we know when that public meeting is going to be scheduled?
Not scheduled yet. We're hoping in the next month, within the next month or so, hopefully a little sooner. Really, I only say a month. We want to make sure that the materials are pulled together by our partners on that, and then give people a little bit of lead time to get it on their schedule. So
There were one or two more people that they were trying to talk to before.
that's
Just
right. That's right. So
to
hopefully
not
we'll have a
surprise
date
people.
within the next week or two, and then it'll be a week or two beyond that, probably something along those lines. And then it says application updates. I think this is probably in reference to the studio. As you know, we have an application in hand for the studio. They actually are going through the DRI process right now. They've finished their traffic study. It's in the hands of the Regional Commission and RETA, Regional Transportation Authority, and GDOT for response. And I think there's still a couple of months. There are a couple 2-week periods and a month-long period, something like that, for them to write their kind of stack up. So I think we're looking at somewhere around a couple months before we get that, and then they will want to schedule, I think, their own public meeting. It's not really a city meeting, but it'll probably happen here, where they engage the public and answer questions and let them know what they have planned, and then it'll get on the calendar for first read and public hearings, City Council and Planning Commission. So that application includes a rezoning, several special use permits for some of the uses that require them on the property, and a couple of variances. So we'll see that.
And that schedule right now is defined mostly by the DRI process, right? We can't move forward until we get,
That's right. We can't schedule them for hearings or anything until the DRI process is done. And then I'm not sure that this is, as you know, we've heard from Harrison, Maryland, expecting him on the Merrill Park, the portion of the Merrill, what he's calling the Merrill Park project, that's in the city of Chattahoochee Hills, 500-ish acres between the park and his Palmetto project. And still don't have an application in hand. I understand that they are working on one. So I'm expecting an application from them. Really, I guess it could be any time. I mean, I wouldn't expect it sooner than maybe about a month, but somewhere along those lines.
Good. Just wanted to make sure everybody knew what was going on right at the moment. Thanks, Mike. Next, we had a couple of things that were items that were from last year's retreat, and we kind of had talked about, whether there was enough open stuff that we actually had staff capacity to do something about to make it worth having a retreat. That's why this work session is a little long, because we've spread some of those talking points out among the next couple of work sessions. And there were some charter issues. Laura, I think you had a couple of things that you wanted to talk about potentially as.
I don't have those things with me, so I wasn't prepared.
Okay, well, we can do that.
Okay.
Next month. And so we talked about the commission thing a little bit. And I think actually, because it's 8 o'clock and we've been here for a couple of hours, since we're going to talk about the commissions next month, since I'm pushing that off a month, I'll move that to next month's work session, so that when we impanel those commissions, we can give them whatever priorities we want to give them. Not much point in doing that today anyway. So unless anybody objects, I'll say that we're done for tonight, and we'll see you all Tuesday. Sound good?
Amen.
All right. Thanks all.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Richie.
All right.
I wanted to say real quick, to thank David for being here today and not having margaritas on her birthday.
Oh, happy
Wait,
birthday.
wait. No, come on. Right, 1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday
to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Katie. Happy birthday to you.